This is CBS News Bay Area with Reed Cowan.
A deadly stabbing in a North Bay high school. Dozens of students witnessing the violence right in their own classroom.
We're teens, this isn't normal.
Personally, I will not be arriving to school for a long time. The school just turned for the worse.
As we explore youth mental health and the challenges our kids face every day, we ask, how do they deal with this?
This is where we trust our children to go.
How can you let your kids go to school?
Be safe.
And how do we create that safety and make support and care they need every day? Thanks for joining us. I'm Reed Cowan. So that is where we begin. Our community is hurting, and so we are going to have a community conversation right at the same time while all this week, and you know this, we've been exploring youth mental health issues and the challenges that our kids are facing day in and day out. Today, Bay Area families are dealing with the reality of violence on campus. A student killed at a high school in Santa Rosa, and that is where we start our coverage today. You know, we first brought you this breaking news yesterday during this very broadcast. Here's your update. Police believe it all began with an altercation at Montgomery High School. They say two boys, juniors, walked into an art class yesterday morning looking for a 15-year-old freshman. They say they started fighting with him in the middle of the class, and police say that is when the freshman pulled out a folding knife and stabbed both of the other boys. One was injured, but the other, 16-year-old Jaden Pienta, was killed.
We're teens, this isn't normal for us to be fighting just because this and that, or, just over little petty things. It's so
So we can tell you classes have been canceled for today and tomorrow. A lot of people just shell-shocked over this. Hugs being offered outside campus while the memorial grows. That's where we find Betty Yu. She's live right now. Betty has been gathering this story. She has more reports coming up tonight, but we wanted to grab Betty just for a couple of minutes. We thank you for your very busy time, Betty. What's the mood there on campus?
Well, Reed, it is very, very solemn this afternoon, and that memorial has certainly grown since we've been here. Students and parents alike are stopping by to bring candles, balloons, and flowers, as you can see behind me there, and really reflect on this deadly stabbing that took Jaden Pienta's life. Many people say they knew the two stabbing victims. Others told me that they just wanted to come by to pay their respects to a young life that was lost. Many of the people that are here today say they're just trying to process the violence that took place on campus. I also spoke with the mother of the second stabbing victim, 16 years old. His name is Cruz. She was extremely shaken up and upset. She stated that she had raised concerns with the school regarding this same suspect weeks before this deadly incident, and that the district and the school has failed her and the students. Now, Cruz's mother didn't elaborate on what tension existed between the older students and that freshman attacker. The district did send us a statement this afternoon saying that right now it is reviewing its safety needs and it is discussing ways in which it can ensure better protocols in all of its schools. Now, Reed, coming up at 5 o'clock, you'll hear from Maria Cervantes. She is Cruz's mother, and she'll explain some of those red flags she said existed and the district and school knew about weeks before this deadly incident. Reed?
Betty Yu, thank you so much for filing that report. We know it's a busy day for you. Pain inside the halls of that building, behind you, and pain now in this entire Bay Area community. Thank you, my friend. We're going to continue to follow the story on air and online at kpix.com. We're always streaming, by the way, on CBS News Bay Area. So often as adults, when we tackle these tough subjects, we talk adult to adult. But it was really important for us this week to let you hear from our young people, because they're the ones living this. Bay Area youth talking about mental health challenges. And today, Sam Inoni joins me. He is a high school senior, and you're a president of your school's branch of the group, Bring Change to Mind. Thanks for being here. Right off the top, as a student here in the Bay Area community, your reaction to the violence?
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for doing this segment. I think what you're doing here is super important for our Bay Area community. I, like everyone, I think it goes without saying, was shocked to hear the news. I think it's tragic. It's also a little numbing at this point. I think this is not the first time we've had a sad event happening here. And so I think as students, it is really sad to have this continue to happen, right? It was sad the first time and it's still sad now. but it's a little numbing at this point.
And that's the place we don't want to get, right? Where these conversations are numbing at this point. I remember when Columbine happened and the whole world was shocked and we had wall-to-wall coverage for months. And now, this is a story that will play itself out like all the others do. We'll feel sad in the moment, but we'll go on without solutions. Let's talk about solutions here. You are in the hallways. You're a part of an organization that addresses emotional and mental health in your school. What are some solutions to turning down the emotional temperature in our schools so that our kids are safe?
Yeah, so my club, Bring Change to Mind, our whole thing is ending the mental health stigma. I think there's a huge stigma around mental illness, mental health in general, and a movement to end the stigma and start the conversation is going to be super beneficial to all of us. I think stigma helps, reducing stigma helps build support systems for kids. We need places to talk, right? Things like mental illness, things like these events are uncomfortable to talk about, and that's natural. So we need to embrace them and start talking about it. And having those support systems is super important. I think we were talking about earlier how Montgomery High, their resource officers, they didn't have them. Our school was super fortunate to have wellness officers, a whole team of them to support kids when events like this happen or whenever students are in need. And I think having those wellness officers, having those support in the school, is super important.
It's like a safe haven inside of a school.
Totally.
Tell our audience. Parents watching, kids watching, if you don't have a wellness center or wellness office in your school, look here. This is a leader who pushed forward things like this in his school. What is a wellness officer? What does it do?
So we have our administrators, our principal, our vice principal. We have a team of people, our wellness counselors, who are not counselors for academics or anything like that. They're just there to care for students' emotional well-being. So, for example, last week they helped me put on an assembly from the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
NAMI.
You've heard of that? Yeah.
Yep.
So super awesome organization. And they helped bring that to our school. And so their job at our school is to help kids feel like their voices are heard and give that safe haven to students. If a student needs, they can check in at the wellness office whenever they want, and they've got drop-in hours. So when something like this happens, they have a place to speak their mind, to share their emotions, and to not internalize it, and to have a support system with someone.
What I think is so important is it's great for the change to happen from the top down, right, with those administrators who are changed to address mental illness. But then it's so important to have young people like you who let the student body know, hey, it's okay to go in this door. It's okay to ask for help. Because then the kids don't feel like there's a stigma with their peers for being seen going into that. How do you create an atmosphere where you can peer-to-peer let your peers know, hey, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to have a day that's just messy.
Yeah, totally. I think that's super true to me, especially on school. I'm kind of known as like a smiling face who's saying hi to everyone in the hallway. And so when I came out at this assembly, and I'm like, this is a subject that's also super important to me. I think it was nice for kids to see someone who's sort of multidimensional. And so I think it's important to just build those connections and check in on people, right? Like how much better could we be doing as a society if we just said, hi, how are you doing, right? Start our days by checking in with each other. And I think that is just something that's super important.
And what you did there is so important also. I don't know if you even knew that you did it, but you looked me directly in the eye when you said hi and how you're doing. That is so important. So look at Sam. He is here as one of our student leaders. Maybe take a cue from him and start where you are right now. Look somebody in the eye. Ask them sincerely, how are you doing? That's the way to create community and culture. Thank you, Sam. You give me hope on a day where we are all hurting, and we appreciate you so much. So we want to let our audience know if you or somebody you know is struggling right now with a crisis, you can get help. Help is available. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is one of many ways you can get that help by calling or texting 988. Still ahead, questions about security at that school in Santa Rosa. And a lot of people are wondering, is having officers on campus every day with eyes and ears in the classrooms, in the halls, the answer to safety? We certainly know from the high school, a lot of people are saying, yes, it is. But we have a Bay Area expert to weigh in on that coming up next. We continue to follow the investigation into the deadly stabbing of a student, police say by another student at Montgomery High School in Santa Rosa. Reportedly, 27 other students traumatized today because they watched it happen. Of course, there are still a lot of questions about why and how. One thing we do know is that Santa Rosa's high schools and middle schools do not have campus-based officers. Here's the background on this because a lot of you are asking about it. Back in 2020, the school district, the school board, decided to not renew that program with Santa Rosa Police. And in fact, during a news conference yesterday, a lot of people, including kids, questioned the chief about that.
Why has it taken a loss of life for you guys to start caring about this school?
Well, I think it's really important to understand that the Santa Rosa Police Department did not remove the SROs from the school campus. So I think that's very important. That was a decision made by the Santa Rosa School Board. As chief, it's something that I've advocated for us to return to, but we can't do that without the support of your Santa Rosa School Board.
I just want to reiterate what you just heard there. That student asked, why did it take a death? And then you heard the applause from the other kids who were asking those questions. And the answer was because the school board voted it so. So joining me now is Dr. Emily Bliss-Gerber from Child Mind Institute to talk about the impacts of all of this. Doctor, thank you so much for talking to me. First question, your reaction to the school resource officer situation, removing them from the school.
Well, that's a really good point. And what I want to talk about is that it's going to be really important for the school to make the teens and staff feel safe again and to acknowledge the steps that are being taken to keep everyone safe. Even if at this point you don't have all the answers, but to, as you do get them, let them know that additional resources are available to support them.
And really, it is about creating that sense of safety again. How, after violence like this? It's reported that 27 students witnessed this violence. And also, it's been reported today, 97 calls for response from that school in the last 12 months, 945 calls for police response to schools in Santa Rosa as a community. That many calls. How, in that environment, do you create a sense of safety for our kids at school?
Well, I think, it's really important to listen and be open to whatever is coming up for the teens. And it's normal to be incredibly distressed by something like this. And, it's a really good opportunity for the school and the district to review and update their safety plans to prevent another incident and how to respond to those in need of help before something happens.
So now that it has happened, we have kids who are traumatized, and trauma is real. PTSD is something that they will live with now for the rest of their lives. What is the response, not only for the kids who are in that school district, but also for kids like mine, my 15-year-old twins? This was the first thing they asked about when they got out of school yesterday. They don't even go to school anywhere near there, and they're traumatized.
Yep.
How do we have these conversations?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think it's important to say that, it was a, traumatic experience, but not necessarily all kids are going to develop PTSD. It's normal in a situation or in an incident where something violent like this occurs, for teens, for anybody to feel incredibly distressed and really heartbroken and disturbed. Those are normal feelings to have. So I think it's really important, and I think Child Mind would say, the Child Mind Institute, that you need to stay open to listening to whatever is coming up for your kids.
Listen and be attentive. And really, I think that
Yes.
listening and mindfulness is the first step in creating safe atmospheres. Doctor, we appreciate that reminder today. Dr. Gerber, we appreciate you so much. We're going to be probably depending on you throughout our coverage for weeks to come. And we thank you so much. Dr. Gerber with the Child Mind Institute. So we've talked about the range of emotions that kids may be facing headed to school. So what do we as parents and adults in their lives say or do at home to help them feel supported during times like this? A Stanford psychiatrist weighs in when we continue this very important community conversation after the break. Hey, before we went to break in the last segment, Dr. Gerber really wanted us to give you this as a website for resources, childmind.org, childmind.org. On this very important day where we're having a community conversation, we had long planned to have a conversation about youth mental health, and then we heard about the terrible news of the stabbing death. And with news of that death at that North Bay student campus, right now we know that a lot of you across the region are hurting. You're dealing with questions from your kids. I did when I got home last night about this tragic event. Joining me live now, Dr. Mari Kurahashi, a psychiatrist with Stanford Children's Health. Thank you so much. So this is a trauma. It's not only on television, but it's spreading all over social media. That's where our kids are having the conversation. How can we as adults help our kids?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I think that as horrible as these tragic events are, it's helpful for parents to know that there are a lot of protective factors that can help decrease children's stress. Parents can create a protective, safe, nurturing environment, which really helps mitigate the stress of such traumatic events. And what I mean by that is being open to conversation, being emotionally supportive, nurturing, having a warm environment at home can be very helpful in supporting our teens.
And you know, those questions that we ask our kids right after school when we pick them up or when they walk through the door are so key because they open up the conversation. I want to tell you what I ask my kids because I have a feeling I'm not doing it right, and I'm just going to lay out my mistakes right here on live television. I always say, did you have a good day, or was your day great? But I almost feel intuitively as we drill down on the subject of youth mental health that I'm casting a net that I expect that they're going to answer with a positive answer. What is the dialogue for that first question when our kids walk through the door?
I love your question, and I think most parents can relate to what you're saying. And I think it's so helpful for us all to examine what are the messages that we're sending our children. And so being able to talk with our children about whatever they're feeling. So how is your day today? And whether it's great, whether it's neutral, whether it was terrible, for our child to feel comfortable expressing however their day was is helpful in relaying the message that their feelings are valid and that you're interested in whatever is going on for them. A lot of times parents say that, I asked my kid how their day was and they just say fine.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
sometimes it can be helpful to ask more specific questions or to get creative with the questions like, did you ask any interesting questions today? What was a challenge that you had? What was something that was a fun thing for you today? Who did you eat lunch with? What did you and your friends do? So being more specific about the questions can sometimes help open the door for more.
Something else that I always do with my kids is I teach them that our central nervous systems, our bodies communicate to us often what's going on with our mental and emotional state. And so I do ask them, how did you feel today? How did you feel in your body today at school? What about that question for a starter to open up the dialogue?
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful question because one, again, it opens up this idea that all feelings are important and valid, and it draws the connection between our emotions and our physical experience. Most of us are often in our heads, whereas our physical bodies, our physical experiences have a lot of important information. And for our children to be building that connection can be so important.
Our bodies are talking to us all the time, are they not? Last question for the kids, for the parents, the community that's hurting after this deadly student stabbing and violence. And I said it earlier, it's been reported 27 students witnessed this. Where as a community can we begin the healing?
Absolutely. And I think one of the important things for us to remember is that for children, for teenagers to feel part of a community can be very healing, can be very supportive. And so being able to have dialogue, to be able to participate in rituals together, to grieve, to be with each other in feelings, for the community to actively reach out and support these individuals and each other can be a really helpful part of the process of healing.
And I'm going to use you as an object lesson, doctor. Pay attention to the doctor, how she talked to us, the tone of her voice, the way she looked right into the camera, how she presented herself physically. It made us all feel safe asking these questions, did it not? Dr. Kurahashi, thank you so much because you've given us cues verbally and non-verbally about how to drop the stigma and have the conversations we need to have in our homes tonight around the dinner table. Much love to you. Thank you so much. And a reminder to you at home, if you're hurting, you can get help. Help is always available. This is just one of many resources out there because you matter, right? Bottom line, you matter. Your life matters. Get that help. Call or text 988. We'll be right back. We're continuing our week-long community conversation on youth mental health tomorrow at 3 o'clock and on other editions of CBS News Bay Area as well, coming up at 5 today. We're going to look at kids' growing concerns about our environment. Yes, they're talking about that as well, and how activism is helping them to channel the stress into something positive. And CBS Evening News is next here on KPIX. Local news continues streaming on CBS News Bay Area. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please tweet us your questions. We love hearing from you. We need this conversation to go on.